Welcome back to NextaudiobookShorts. Life, in its purest distillation, is a relentless sequence of negotiations that you are either commanding or surrendering to. Whether you are navigating a high-stakes multi-million-dollar merger, orchestrating a complex boardroom coup, or simply directing the trajectory of your most intimate personal relationships, you are perpetually engaged in a sophisticated battle of psychological wills. Most people approach these critical junctures with the fragile crutch of logic, hoping for a fair compromise. This is a catastrophic strategic error. Logic is merely a thin facade. Humans are irrational, volatile organisms driven by subterranean fears and unspoken, often subconscious, desires. Today, we are decoding the ultimate manual for psychological dominance. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. As a former lead international hostage negotiator for the FBI, Voss operates on the premise that splitting the difference is not a success. It is a concession to failure. In a world of absolute stakes, there is no middle ground. You do not compromise with a terrorist, and you must never compromise on your inherent value. It is time to master the art of tactical empathy. The elite do not argue, they influence. It is time to win. Chapter 1. The foundation of elite negotiation is the total rejection of the rational actor myth that has plagued business schools for decades. Most traditional negotiation training is built upon the flawed, academic premise that humans make decisions based on cold, binary logic. The reality is far more dangerous. We are emotional animals who utilize logic only as a post hoc justification for what our primitive intuition has already decided. To ascend to the elite tier, you must cease the futile attempt to reason with an opponent and instead begin to surgically navigate their subconscious landscape. Voss introduces the concept of tactical empathy, not as a soft, empathetic gesture of kindness, but as a high-precision intelligence-gathering tool. By demonstrating a profound understanding of the other party's internal world, you effectively bypass their amygdala and disarm their defensive posture. You are not agreeing with their position. You are identifying the emotional landmines and psychological obstacles that prevent them from moving toward your objective. Most people talk excessively because they are terrified of the silence. The elite, however, weaponize silence. They listen with the predatory intensity of a hunter, waiting for the other side to inadvertently reveal their black swans. Those hidden, game-changing fragments of information that shift the entire balance of power. If you cannot dictate the emotional climate of the room, you have already... Chapter 2. To exert absolute command over a conversation, you must master the twin engines of influence, the mirror and the label. These are the primary scalpels of the high-level psychological practitioner. Mirroring is the sophisticated art of repeating the final three words, or the most critical three words, of what the other person has just articulated. It is a biological bypass that triggers an involuntary safety response in the human brain, subtly compelling the other party to continue speaking and, inevitably, reveal more than they intended to disclose. It is a simple tool that produces devastatingly complex results. Labeling, however, is where the true neurolinguistic surgery occurs. A label is a detached, third-person statement that identifies a specific emotion or dynamic. It seems like you're concerned about the hidden risks of this partnership. By labeling a negative emotion, you mathematically diffuse its power. By labeling a positive one, you reinforce its structural integrity. The elite never utilize I statements such as, "I understand how you feel," which only center the negotiator's ego. Instead, they use neutral, observational phrases. This removes the ego from the equation and forces the opponent to perform an internal audit of their own emotional state. When you label an opponent's fear, you strip that fear of its shadow. You are no longer merely a participant in the conversation. You are the narrator of their reality. Chapter 3. One of the most pervasive and damaging fallacies in negotiation is the desperate pursuit of yes. The amateur is addicted to yes because it provides a fleeting, false sense of progress. In truth, a yes is often a counterfeit yes, a defensive mechanism designed to get the negotiator to stop talking and go away. The elite understand that no is where the actual negotiation begins its ascent. No provides the other party with a profound sense of safety, autonomy, and territorial control. When a person says no, they feel they have protected themselves, and as a result, their guard drops. Your tactical goal is to trigger a no as early as possible to dissolve their skepticism. By utilizing oriented questions like, "Is now a disastrous time to speak?" or "Have you completely given up on this initiative?" you force the other party to define their boundaries. Once they have secured their perimeter with a no, they become significantly more receptive to your perspective. Furthermore, the ultimate psychological victory is not yes, but the resonant phrase, "That's right." When your counterpart utters "that's right," it signifies that they feel comprehensively understood at a visceral level. This is the moment of psychological surrender. From this point forward, they're no longer an adversary fighting against you. They're a collaborator working under your influence. Chapter 4. The most potent weapon in the FBI's psychological arsenal is the calibrated question. This represents the strategic shift from making overt demands to providing the other side with what Voss calls the illusion of control. Instead of an aggressive command like, "You need to lower your price," the elite practitioner asks, "How am I supposed to do that?" This is a how question that effectively forces the other party to solve your problem for you using their cognitive resources. It is impossible to meet this question with aggression because it is framed as a humble request for assistance. By consistently deploying how and what questions, you compel your counterpart to expend their mental energy finding a solution that ultimately aligns with your goals. You are essentially architecting their thought process, leading them to your conclusion while allowing them to maintain the belief that the idea originated within them. However, you must be surgically careful to avoid why questions at all costs. Why is a universal trigger for defensiveness. It feels like a cross-examination or an accusation of incompetence. The elite never ask why. They ask what the obstacles are or how the process is intended to function. Command the questions, and you command the final signature. Chapter 5. Negotiation is frequently viewed as a game of financial haggling, but the elite recognize that the numbers are often a secondary distraction to the psychological power play. To dominate the final stages of a bargain, you must master the Ackerman model. This is a systematic, de-escalating framework for hard bargaining that removes the guesswork from the process. You begin by setting your initial offer at 65% of your target price, then move in calculated increments to 85%, 95%, and finally 100%. Crucially, each subsequent increase is smaller than the last, signaling to the other side that you are reaching your absolute breaking point. Your final offer should never be a round number. Instead, use a highly specific, non-integer figure, such as $41,267. This creates the psychological illusion that you have performed an exhaustive, down-to-the-penny calculation of your limit. Furthermore, you must remain hypervigilant regarding the F word, fairness. Humans will irrationally sabotage their own best interests if they perceive a situation as unfair. The elite preempt this by framing the conversation early. "I want to ensure you feel you are being treated fairly at every step." This anchors the interaction in a positive psychological frame. Never allow the other side to anchor a price first unless you are prepared to immediately execute an extreme pivot. You are the sole architect of the deal's perceived value. Chapter 6. The final and most perilous dimension of any high-stakes human interaction is the discovery of the black swan. A black swan is a volatile fragment of information that exists outside the parameters of normal expectation. A hidden personal motive, an unvoiced fear, or a specific leverage point that neither side has dared to put on the table. The elite operate under the assumption that in every negotiation, there are at least 3 black swans lurking beneath the surface on each side. To unearth them, you must look past the spoken word and analyze the unrational behavior of your counterpart. Why are they obstructing a deal that clearly benefits them? What specific loss are they most terrified of suffering? When you identify a black swan, you gain total, asymmetric leverage. You can pivot the entire trajectory of a deal in a single, decisive stroke. This requires a sovereign mindset, the capacity to remain detached, calm, and observant when everyone else in the room is reacting to pressure. Negotiation is not a battle of physical strength. It is a battle of perception and information mastery. The individual who sees the most wins the most. The era of meeting in the middle is over. Compromise is the slow death of your potential. In a world of predators and prey, the individual who masters human psychology holds the master keys to the kingdom. You now possess the mirrors, the labels, the calibrated questions, and the Ackerman framework. The question is no longer whether you will obtain what you desire. It is how effectively you will deploy your influence to seize it. Influence is the only currency that never devalues. Thank you for experiencing this masterclass on Never Split the Difference here at NextaudiobookShorts. If you are ready to master the art of negotiation and join the ranks of the elite, ensure you are subscribed. We provide the high-density wisdom required for an elite life. In your next high-stakes conversation, do not argue, mirror. Do not demand, label the fear. Do not explain, ask how. Comment below. Tactical empathy to signal your entry into the inner circle of influence. Stay sharp. Stay elite. We'll see you at the table.